I am Brad Steinke, and I am the Development Services Director, and myself and Rudy Esquivius, we're all you have here in the city. We're the folks that are going to help you be all you can be in the city. I'm always jealous about Bob because, he goes to a property and someone's kind of surly and the guy starts telling Bob what a silly, stupid law it is, and Bob has the luxury of saying, hey, I don't create the rules, I just enforce them. Rudy and I, on the other side, we help dream up these rules. We take them to the city council, they debate them, they massage them, and they ultimately approve or deny them. But it's tough for us to say, hey, we have nothing to do with it, because frankly, we kind of do. And I'll explain why that is. Basically, the city planning effort is like most any other community. We have a number of fundamental things that we do. The one that I'm going to talk about is primarily the long-range planning and the policy planning. So long-range planning, policy planning, that's what do you want to be when you grow up and how do you get there. We also deal with the issue of current planning, and Rudy's going to talk about that, and he's going to have an exercise for you about that. Current planning is someone knocks on our city hall door and wants to build an office, a house, an industry, or something. And then we have to take them through the process to make sure that that something complies with our ordinance and actually is benefiting the city. Because you see, the reason you have planners and you have a planning division is because if we didn't have any of these rules or regulations, anything would go. And one of the most important things for all of you and for the people in the city is their most important investment in life, which typically is their home, their property. And while we're very, very strong private property rights people in the Southwest here, government, stay out of my life, don't tell me what to do. The fact is, if someone moves in next door and decides they're going to have a pig pen, you would like the law to have something to say about that. You would like to have laws so a guy like Bob can go to your neighbor when they're doing something that is disrupting your quality of life, whether it's a swimming pool that has mosquitoes in, or whether it's a stench, or whether it's an unsightly stuff that they put in their backyard. You would like us to help protect your investment and your quality of life. So that's why we exist in the city. And it's a delicate balance because I want to be able to do what I want to do in my property, but I also have to recognize the neighbor has rights too. So it's our job to help try to balance those rights. And if we get it wrong, we go back to the drawing board and we try it again. First, let's talk just a little bit about long-range planning. And this is, if for any of you who have ever played SimCity on the computer, it's basically trying to design a city for the future. Some communities start from scratch, just nothing there, and they build from the beginning and have the ability to create the correct rules from the beginning. That really wasn't the case here. This city got started before it was a city, and things occurred and happened in the community that we all still have to live with now, and they're going to be there a long, long time. But it's up to us to try to put the best face on it we can, and then also for the undeveloped portion of the city, and there's quite a bit, to make sure we do the right things for that in the future. And we really appreciate folks like you who come out on evenings like this. You have a civic interest in the community, because it's not Rudy and I who decide what the city should be. We don't dictate land use. We don't dictate the rules. We listen to what you say. We try to put it all together into some sort of reasonably understandable document and pictures and get the city council to approve it, but not after it's gone through multiple public hearings, open houses, letters coming in, conversations on the phone, because we don't hold the corner on good planning, and every community has their own design, what they want to be. First thing I learned when I came here 6 years ago was we don't want to be Scottsdale, all right? Some people believe Scottsdale is the living in when it comes to a planned city, that that's the way everybody should be and everyone's happy and so forth. What I learned here is we're different. We have our own ideas on what we want to be. We still want to be a little bit of the Old West. We still want to be able to protect the equestrian culture in the community because let's face it, virtually every other community in the valley has pushed horses out, right? And said, you guys can't be here anymore because you smell the flies, the noise, the danger. So we wanted to be able to accommodate that. We wanted to be able to accommodate affordable housing in the community. We have a lot of people, you know, my ancestors and my cousins, all from the Midwest, who love to come down here for a while, and they love to come down to AJ. It fits them. So they don't want to see it change too much. They want to see us continue to get better, you know, but they don't want to see us change into somebody else. So our job is to help try to tap whatever that source is of your need for the future, tap it, bottle it, regulate it, get it out there. So that's who we are. First thing we do when we're planning a city is we do a general plan. The general plan is not laws, it's not regulations, it's ideas. So the first general plan, Rudy, the city had was back in the 80s? Early 80s. Early 80s. And we had a couple different versions of it along the way?
We've had about
half a dozen versions. This latest one we did in 2010. The state requires you to actually do this every, 10 years? I forget now. Every 10 years they require us to go through this exercise. And frankly, we should probably do it more often. And if we find we didn't do it right, we can always come back the next year and fix it. So the general plan is to try to figure out what your goals are in the city. Again, what do you want to be when you grow up? Land use, environmental issues, transportation, parks and recreation, community facilities, the financing of the city, everything it takes for this community, and this community is a business. It's what, a $45 million business with 200 some employees in the community? Make no mistake, it is a corporation. And everything we do has either a positive or negative effect in that corporation, just like any other business. So we try to go through it methodically in a business-like manner, but also understand that there's some intangibles that you can't put a dollar figure on. And we said, how do you want to paint this landscape? Where do you want to have low-density residential homes go? Medium-density residential homes? Where do you want RVs and manufactured homes? Where do you want your commercial development, industrial development, and parks? And after going through that entire thing, we come up with a nice, pretty plan, general in character, as you can see, if you can see. And by the way, Rudy's going to hand out he did already, souvenirs of this. We also have this posted on the website. And it helps folks who are interested in moving into the city or folks that are here and want to know what the city's future is, understand just what the heck we have in store for the community. And in this case, a couple of interesting things. We've decided to preserve the low-density residential character of much of our rural area, where many communities have decided, okay, and when I say low density, it's acre and a quarter. Anybody live out there in the acre and a quarter areas? Okay. And you kind of like that, don't you? You like the spaces. You don't like to be cheek to jowl with other people. And that came through loud and clear. Other communities over time, because they give into the pressures of developers who want to come to the door and they want to take that acre and a quarter and they want to put 25 homes in there. And ching ching, the cash register goes and everyone says, man, growth is good, progress, let's do it. This community has said so far, we don't want to do that out there, all right? And they don't have to, because we have 7,000 acres of undeveloped land south of the city that we can do what you might want to call typical suburban development. Right. What we have is an approved general plan. It is basically a text, I think about 250 pages, goals and objectives, lots of pretty maps to help us chart our course. And then there's a map here. The land use plan map is typically the one that everyone looks at, which illustrates what that is for the city. So that's the general planning effort. So we have the general plan, blueprint for the city's future, and then we take that general plan and we divide it up into zones. multiple residential zones based on the densities, the maximum densities, multiple commercial zones based on the types of commercial development you could have in this or that color, multiple industrial zones, multifamily residential, open space and institutional. So this is really for those people interested in knowing exactly what they can do with their land. This map says this is the law. Behind each of these colors is another 250-page text, which are the specific rules and regulations for zoning and how you can use your land. And those are the issues that cause guys like Bob to have a full-time job, because those rules may suggest, for example, that you cannot have on your property an unlicensed or unworkable car. You just can't store a junk car on your property. And some guy will say, well, it's my property, I can do whatever I want to. Maybe someday I'm going to get it to work. Maybe someday I'll put a license. Well, Bob goes out and says, you can't do it? Well, you can screen it. If we don't see it, it's okay. The guy screams at Bob. Bob says, can't do anything about it. That's the rules. If enough people scream about it, they start calling the council members, and the council members say, hey, we got too many people here that want to have junk cars in your yard. We want you to change that law. And then Rudy and I sit back. We look at what everyone else in the world's doing with junk cars. We come up with multiple options for them, take it to the council, have public hearings, and the council decides if they want to make that rule more flexible or not. In that particular case, no, we don't want junk cars in the yard. What about animals, small animals? What about chickens? Are they okay? Hens? Hens are fine. Roosters, not so much, okay? So it gets down to some of that level of detail. What about home occupations? You can live in your house, that's what the zoning allows you to do, but can you run an office inside of your house? Yeah, that's not so bad, right? No one hears you, no one's coming and going, you're just clicking on the keyboard inside. That's okay, have an office in the house. Okay, what if you want to have a little business where in your workshop you make fuzzy little toys that don't make any noise? You put them in your minivan, and once a day you take them to stores and sell them. No one hears it, no customers coming, that's okay. What if you do car repair, where your garage door is open, zzz, zzz, bang, bang, and your neighbors are hearing this? Not so much, right? What if you're manufacturing something with a drill press, boom, boom, with a big vibration that the whole neighborhood can hear at 2 in the morning? Certainly not so good. So, how's our home occupation law going to be created? How far do we go in allowing you to do more than just live on your property, but to work out of it without impacting your neighbors? Those are issues that we grapple with. That's part of the zoning and the land use stuff that we deal with. The zoning code for this city, all those rules, and multiply it by 100, what I just told you, was created back in early 80s. And guess what? Along the way, people rose up in opposition to this or that, and Rudy, he changed the law, put it in the old code, and over the period of 25 years, that old code is a patchwork of all kinds of changes. While he understands it, virtually nobody else does. So what we're doing is, in the last 2 years, the Planning and Zoning Commission said, let's take that code, and we should have probably along the way done this, we just haven't had the resources. With the poor economy over the last 3 or 4 years, we've had time to internally do this. So we're updating the codes, trying to make it much more user-friendly, so when you pop it open, you have a sense of understanding what it says, what the rules are. You don't have to rely on Rudy and I to interpret the rules, but it's pretty sensible, it's pretty straightforward. Zoning code follows the general plan. All right, and that's the way things should be. And then every 5 years you go through the exercise again and do them both, and that's really a big part of what I do. All right. Let me just say before I hand it over to Rudy, because Rudy's all about, the majority of his time is spent doing current planning when someone wants to build something, reviewing it, trying to make it look real pretty architecturally, making sure the traffic's okay, making sure the impacts are all right. He does that, and he primarily is responsible for answering questions every day about zoning. Okay, what's the zoning of my property? What can I put on my property? Subdivider comes in, I want to subdivide land. What are the rules and regulations? Guy wants to build an office building. What do I have to do, Rudy? And Rudy's, I go by his office, always on the phone, always at the counter, clicking away his machine, sending emails away. That's an information processing part of what we do. We only have 2 people now, all right? We used to have 2007, was it? We had 6 people in the planning department, full-timers, down to 2. Mid-next year, we're down to 1. But as development starts to pop back, if subdivisions start to occur, we'll get back to, I think, where we need to be to keep on top of things. Talked about that 7,000 acres of future land south of the 60. We're going to call it Lost Dutchman Heights right now. It's entirely owned by the State Land Trust, state of Arizona. We've spent 2 or 3 years planning this, and then the developer that was going to do it went belly up through the recession. But this plan, which you cannot see, but you have to trust me again, is a plan for 39,000 new homes, 39,000 new homes, about 8 million square feet of commercial space. Right now we have a population of about 35, 36,000. If this is built over decades, it may take 40, 50 years, the city's build-out population is roughly 120,000 people. Okay? And that's if we don't annex more land south of here, because there's a lot of county land south of here that could be developed. In fact, there's a plan that's been done by multiple agencies called Superstition Vistas down here, that if you go from here down to Florence, Queen Creek, Florence, that whole area of pristine, undeveloped desert land could accommodate 1 million more people. 1 million more people. For this metro area, which is huge. So we're working on this right now. We're thinking that in the near future, a new developer is going to step forward and want to start developing this. So it's possible in a year, year and a half, we might start to see this plan start to move forward. Okay? And then just one more thing. In addition to that, I don't want to lose track of the downtown. Don't know if Janine has come here or not. You know where the old Grand Hotel sat? Right in here? This is all pretty much vacant land. And again, we had a developer that was interested in developing that 4 or 5 years ago. That went backwards. And the city now is taking an aggressive role to try to find appropriate developers to come in here and make a nice little downtown village. Something that, the community deserves. And I think if the market's ready for it, it'll be very, very nice. City's taken some steps to try to do some road improvements here along Apache Trail and along Plaza, which starts to show the private developers that we're interested, we're willing to invest in the community. Focal points down here, if you recall where we're at here, and that we'd like to see some commercial, even mixed use, residential, multifamily down there to create some energy and excitement in the downtown. So those 2 projects, the downtown project, Lost Dutchman Heights, I think that's our future for the city, and I think it's going to be exciting once the economy decides that it wants to come back full force.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rudy Esquivias. I'm the senior planner. Been with the city, it's going to be 25 years in May. Basically, I've spent all my career here. Interned a little bit in Guadalupe while I was still in school, and then came to work for AJ right about 2 weeks after I graduated. But anyway, what we do, like Brad gave you a really good overview, what we do is we handle the everyday stuff. How tall can I build a fence? Where can I put my fence? I want to build a shed. I want to add an awning to my house. I want to build a house. I want to put in a manufactured home. My neighbor has chickens. Is that okay? Those kinds of questions are the day-to-day questions that we deal with. And we look in the zoning ordinance to see what the zoning ordinance says. Is this particular lot zoned for chickens? What are the rules for accessory buildings on this other particular lot? Is it in a subdivision? Is it a rural area? Is it multifamily? So every case is different. Every question is different. Never a dull moment, because you never know what's going to come through the door. You never know what the brush fire of the day is going to be. And believe me, there are many. So that's the kind of thing I do on a daily basis, help folks with their questions. Folks at the counter, folks through phone calls, folks who send me emails. I also deal a lot with intergovernmental agencies. The county has an issue that they refer to us, or vice versa, or City of Mesa, or Maricopa County, or the Airport Authority. You know, you never know what's going to come through the door that might affect us planning-wise, zoning-wise, land use-wise. So that's the kind of stuff that we do on a daily basis, in addition to helping out our code officers with zoning interpretation matters. Bob gave a really good presentation a little earlier. A lot of what Bob does overlaps to zoning. You know, hey, Rudy, people are complaining about goats on a property. You know, is this property allowed to have goats? I mean, that was a real issue that we had, you know, back in the summer. What about what? Pot-bellied pigs? Once again, depends on your zoning district. In the large lot zones, obviously, you can do more agricultural, horticultural types of things. In a typical 5,000 or 6,000 square foot lot tract home subdivision, normal household pets are okay, but typically chickens and farm animals and things like that are not allowed because they have an impact on the neighbor, whether it be the smell, whether it be the noise, roosters crowing at 3 a.m. in the morning, whatever the case may be. The houses are very close together. You don't have the space, you don't have the facilities and be able to put up stables and sheds and things like that to properly house animals and not disturb your neighbors. So that's why there's those types of rules in place. So we help out our code folks on a daily basis with zoning interpretation issues, with land use issues. We also handle building permits. This time of year we have a lot of winter visitors, and many of them live in RV parks. So this is the time of year that they're installing new park models. They want to add an awning, they want to add an Arizona room. I review each and every single permit that comes through the office for those types of things. We also have a lot of illegal construction where Bob gets involved, and so there's a lot of that kind of follow-up too. Planning division typically also, a big part of what we do is we aid our Planning and Zoning Commission and our City Council. Okay, somebody wants a rezoning. General plan says this area is designated medium density. Somebody comes in and says, I want to build a 5-acre commercial property. Well, the first thing we do is refer to the general plan. Does the general plan say this area is okay for commercial, or does it not say? If it doesn't say it's okay for commercial, then, like Brad said, the general plan has a lot of stuff in there about goals and objectives, but also definitions. What defines a major amendment? What defines a minor amendment? Basically, 10 acres or less, even though the general plan says it's residential, if it's 10 acres or less, someone might apply for a commercial rezoning. Now, are they going to get it approved? Not necessarily. That's where public hearings come in. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about our role-playing exercise where that will become more evident. Just because someone applies for a rezoning, they pay the fees for the rezoning, they present plans for a rezoning, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be approved. It's got to go through a process. And the planners help the developers go through that process. Typically, it involves going to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a work session and then a public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission will make a recommendation to the council. Council, we recommend approval, we recommend denial. If we recommend approval, we recommend these conditions. If we recommend denial, we're recommending denial because of these reasons. Okay, so then a couple of weeks after that, planning will take the case to the city council. Once again, we'll have a work session with the council. They'll ask us questions. Maybe they have additional issues. And then a couple of weeks after that, we'll go back to them for their final decision. They may approve their rezoning. They may not approve a rezoning. They may approve a rezoning with all kinds of other conditions, or they may approve a rezoning and take away some of the conditions. Every case is different. Every situation is different. A lot of times it really does come down to what type of reaction any given proposal gets from a neighborhood. If someone wants to put an RV storage lot in the middle of a residential area, you might have some neighbors who say, no, we'd like to have more neighbors. We don't want to see a bunch of RVs parked in the middle of our neighborhood. So public input is very important in that respect. So we handle rezonings. Brad mentioned text amendments. We have this document called the zoning ordinance that has been updated many times over the last couple of decades, and it is absolutely a patchwork. I have been a party to many of those amendments, and these amendments are suggested by citizens, they're suggested by council members, they result because we discovered something wasn't working or something wasn't working good enough. So that's why amendments get made to the zoning ordinance. And over time, if you get enough amendments made to your zoning ordinance, it becomes kind of difficult to read because one part may affect another part, and if you're only reading one part of the code, you might be missing part of the picture. So for that reason, we're going through a zoning ordinance update, trying to basically put everything in the right order, make everything easier to understand. Different parts of an issue should really all be in one section instead of in different scattered sections. Those are the types of problems that we're trying to correct in our zoning ordinance update. Every city in Arizona is supposed to either adopt a new general plan every 10 years or re-adopt its existing plan every 10 years. However, once a year, a city is allowed to make changes to its general plan, and typically those changes are developer initiated, although every once in a while we do have a city-initiated general plan amendment as well. That's another thing that the planners do. Planners also help out a group called the Board of Adjustment. Someone lives on a property, say they're on the side of a hill or something, and they cannot meet the setbacks that are normally required in that zoning district. Arizona law is very tough on variances. Basically what the law says is the only time a city should grant a variance is when there is something physically different about the land in a particular zoning district that does not apply to neighbors in the same zoning district. Like you have a wash going through your property, or you're on the side of a hill, or you got a great big rock crop in the middle of your property for whatever reason. That would be a textbook case for a variance. We see very few variances move through our process because most of the time guys like me or Brad will stand at the counter and help folks with an option. Well, maybe you can't build it at 10 feet or you can't expand the building this way, but have you thought about expanding the building in this other direction where you can meet the setbacks, where it's not going to cause an issue, or it's not going to impact your neighbors? So many of those variance type situations are taken care of at the counter, but every once in a while we have a good case that deserves a variance and we take it through the process. Sometimes we have cases which don't really meet the criteria and we take them through the process anyway and let the Board of Adjustment decide. The Board of Adjustment and the Planning and Zoning Commission are appointed citizens. Okay, the City Council appoints folks to serve 2-year terms. The Planning and Zoning Commission has 7 members. The Board of Adjustment has 7 members, and they are all appointed by council. They're volunteers, just like yourselves from the community, who say, yeah, I want to be part of this and get a little more involved. What can I do? Well, you fill out a talent bank application, you give it to the city clerk, and whenever we need new board members, you'll probably get a phone call from our city clerk saying, hey, would you like to be interviewed? And come on down on such and such a date. And that's how we have folks on our P&Z Commission. Some of them have been there for a long time. A couple of them are brand new. So once again, these are volunteers from the community who are entrusted by the City Council to help folks with their land use matters. The Planning and Zoning Commission actually does have the authority on one of the things that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, a thing called a conditional use permit. The zoning code allows the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve such things as signs that are bigger, taller, or greater in number than normally allowed on a particular business property. The Planning and Zoning Commission has the authority to let mobile home parks have craft sales where they bring in commercial vendors, where they bring in folks from the outside to participate in the events. And the conditional use permits can also be used for example, in some of the rural properties. If you have enough acreage and you want to have a horse boarding facility, or maybe you want to have a trail riding facility, those types of cases would also go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a conditional use permit. So there are some things that maybe aren't exactly allowed outright by zoning, but that may be compatible, with certain conditions. It might work on a particular property. So those are the types of things that we'll take to a Planning and Zoning Commission for a CUP. If nobody approves, if nobody contests the commission decision, then it stands. Whenever the Planning and Zoning Commission approves a conditional use permit, there's a 20-day appeal period. If nobody appeals, the decision stands. If somebody does appeal, then it goes to council. And once again, the planners are the folks who shepherd all that through the process. Everyday stuff, counter questions, intergovernmental agencies, all kinds of matters dealing with land use, helping the Planning and Zoning Commission, the City Council with land use matters, with text matters, and also helping, like Brad said, helping to formulate some of those codes and ordinances that are in our books now. It's not just the zoning code. We also administer a subdivision ordinance. Under state law, in cities and municipalities, if you propose to take a lot and split it into more than 3, then you have to do a subdivision. Okay, what does that mean? Well, typically it means you have to hire an engineer to design streets that are going to serve your new lots. You're creating a land use impact. You're putting a bunch of lots where there were no lots before. It's going to affect the neighborhood. So you have to design streets, you have to put in fire hydrants, you may have to put in street lights, you've got to put in retention so that the water that normally would flow across that property is now going to be retained on site, and natural historic flows will continue to be allowed across the property. Many issues. We interact a great deal with our city engineers, with our public works folks, with architects, with land use planners on the private side. So those are all the types of issues that planners deal with on a daily basis while taking a request through the process, while helping folks out, everybody from mom and pop wanting to put an awning on the side of their house to a multi-billion-dollar national corporate developer wanting to build a new Walmart or a new subdivision or Lost Dutchman Heights. 1,000 acres was sold to a developer from Las Vegas. Brad mentioned they ended up losing the property. Somebody else is going to step in, and we're going to be the folks helping them through the process, along with our public works folks and our engineers and the fire department and the water companies, the utility companies, everybody else who was involved in the development process.